either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast. I'm Nico.
And I'm Chris.
And it is that glorious time of year again. That time full of wonderful joy and excitement, where jailbirds fly free, and you should be well advised to put the bunny back in the box. It's Nic Cage November, and we are back with an action-packed season, starting off with, if you haven't guessed it by now, Con Air.
I love this movie and was shocked and horrified to learn my husband had not seen it.
Which is surprising because I know we've tried for many years to do Nic Cage November for Lads Night.
Yes, and the pushback is always a strong pushback.
Well, it's not always a pushback. It's like, hey, let's watch this or let's watch that, and it's always, oh, let's do The Rock. It's like,
yeah, we're honestly missing out because Con Air is one of America's greatest movies ever produced, I think.
Yeah, but we also wanted to talk about this because we were looking at part of Nicolas Cage's filmography, and this was in that peak of his action phase.
Yes, he was the star.
Yeah, as well we have a couple of his lesser or not praised action movies.
I agree.
To talk about for the mic reviews this month. But we are kicking it off with Con Air, even though the kickoff for this, he had like a trilogy of action movies, like back to back to back.
He did.
Was The Rock.
Yeah.
Which, sorry, we aren't covering this year.
We'll get to it, I promise.
But that was the one that kicked off that. And it was The Rock, Con Air, and Face Off, which are...
Also a fantastic movie.
Yeah, which are three of Cage's more iconic roles, I would say.
I would agree. However, a huge motivation for me to remember Con Air as the greatest of these three is the fact that Nic Cage grew out his own hair for this film, and it has become, even if you don't remember or have ever watched Con Air, I guarantee you've seen pictures from Con Air.
You've seen the gif of him letting it flow in the wind.
Blow in the wind.
Smiling with the sun on his face as a almost free man.
Yeah, this movie is the hottest of messes. There is such a crazy-ass plot and such a crazy-ass list of not only characters, but actors who appear in this film, that it makes it one of my favorites.
Yeah, which is interesting because it's written by Scott Rosenberg, who didn't do a whole lot before Con Air, but does have me a little bit curious because he did do the screenplay for the remake of Gone in 60 Seconds, starring Nic Cage as well.
Of course.
But he also has done Kangaroo Jack and the two Jumanji reboots that I haven't seen. So
I have, and it fits. It makes sense.
It's got me more curious because I haven't seen those yet. So.
I think you can see his humor in all three. Or four, if you include Con Air.
Yeah, the only thing that really, outside of him right now, that makes me even want to watch those is, well, like Jack Black, it's Karen Gillan, let's be honest. Redhead.
I totally understand. I am not advocating to go see the Jumanji reboots. They hold no candle to the original. They are just a fun, quick, I happen to have seen them sort of movie. However, the humor styling throughout all of the movies definitely translates well. I can see how they are all made by one person, or have one person's hand in them.
Yeah, but it also is the feature film debut of director Simon West, who we did talk about a bit on our Lara Croft Tomb Raider episode.
Of course, classic.
He's gone on to do kind of a mediocre career after that, but...
Well, speaking with some of my adult family members who are not as big a Nic Cage fans as we are, they would argue that Con Air is also mid-tier. So maybe he just really excels at adventure, smaller films. Though. I know, but honestly...
Con Air was not a small film.
It was not.
Neither was Tomb Raider.
No, they both cost a lot of money, and both eventually made a lot of money, but, in different ways. We're not looking at blockbusters here. We're talking about, some cult fans really enjoy this one.
Yeah, Bobby Wyatt, who I found a handful of interviews from her on, referred to them as popcorn flicks.
I agree. I think that's a great term. I will incorporate it. Because yes, these are the perfect movies to enjoy a snack, enjoy a little beverage, watch for funsies.
Exactly.
But there's nothing serious about anything.
No. Because Con Air follows Cameron Poe, a former U.S. Ranger who has found himself behind bars and on his way back home but things take a turn for the worse when a group of high-level convicts jack his flight home.
I will not lie to you. Literally every single thing about this movie is both unbelievable and out of this world. And that's the best part.
No, exactly. I mean, we talk about, you mentioned that the cast is pretty big for it.
It's huge.
I mean, it's got Nicolas Cage as Cameron Poe.
Of course.
John Cusack as Agent Vince Larkin. And John Malkovich as Cyrus the Virus Grissom.
Those are just 3 of the many, many people who make an appearance who you're going to look at and go, of course they're in this film.
Yeah, it's got Colin Mulaney, Dave Chappelle, Ving Rhames, Steve Buscemi.
Yeah.
Early on in his career, Danny Trejo.
A young Danny Trejo, which honestly, young Danny Trejo and older Danny Trejo do look almost the same. I appreciate that.
Yeah, he's a little more wrinkly now, but
I
still.
think you know how some actors chase their forever young look. They're always looking to be 30. Danny Trejo has always looked a little bit older than he really is.
Yeah.
And I think it plays well.
That's what a hard life will do to you.
Truthfully, yes.
As loved as this movie is, I was surprised that I couldn't find a special edition of this either, so
There's nothing.
Yeah, there's not even any major interviews or commentary, although I do have some sources for this episode, and they weren't super deep.
Nope, same.
They were interviews with producer Jerry Bruckheimer, not doing foreign films anymore, but I'm still stumbling over names. Director Simon West, Nicolas Cage, and John Cusack from the Bobby White archive on YouTube.
Of course.
Who also noted that one thing I thought that was interesting. They've noticed that film school isn't necessary to get into movies because Simon West, the director, was directing TV shows or TV commercials before this. She was noticing a lot of crossover of all these interviews in the 90s of hey, there's a lot of this crossing over of actors going in between movies and TV shows, whereas before it was one person was a TV star, the other person was a movie star.
This is true. This is before the big break of soap opera people becoming normal movie stars. Yeah.
And I did think it was interesting. It was brought up that there was rumors, and she wanted to ask if Cage was still planning to play Superman after this, because Cage was like,
yeah,
I've done 3 movies with Vegas and action. I'm kind of done with Vegas for a while.
Understandable. Fun fact, this movie was not originally meant to end in Vegas.
No.
The movie was originally meant to end in Washington, with the plane crashing into the White House. And they went, well, but what if that doesn't really make a lot of sense. What if it's Vegas instead? Which then turned out to work well, because the Hard Rock Cafe sign they run into happens to be the same place the premiere was held. Mm-hmm. So that works.
Yeah,
that feels nice.
Good publicity. It would be weird showing this at the White House.
It would. I don't know how many people you'd be allowed to have. Not that many, I don't think.
I mean, it's 97. You got Clinton potentially getting his dick sucked by Lewinsky, and
from seeing presidential speeches, I feel like Bill Clinton might have been a fan of Con Air and might have enjoyed having this hosted at the White House.
Probably watching it while in the Oval Office, having some funsies.
Maybe, but for a general consumer, having it in Las Vegas makes sense. Also, because everywhere else they shot, they specifically wanted that barren wasteland look, that very Western, ooh, where are we? Could be anywhere.
Yeah.
So, why would you go from the desert to Washington, which famously has no deserts near it?
To make it big and
it'd be a long-ass airplane ride with the crazy crazies on this plane.
To make urgency and whatnot.
Yeah.
One thing I also want to note when I was trying to find some digging on some of this, or any information I could find, we talk about how much Cage works.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Cusack did 5 movies in 1997, including Con Air and Anastasia.
That's very impressive.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Good for him.
He was a powerhouse for a little bit.
You know, I can't blame him, because looking at just the general trend, everybody's got bills to pay, and some of these movies are a great way to do it.
Yep. But before we get into Con Air, Chris, what are we drinking today?
Well, unfortunately, no one consumes any food or beverage.
They do, but
it's all prison food.
No, it's in the bar. There's people in the background taking shots.
There are, but in honor of what will be tomorrow spooky, we have the last of the Beetlejuice beverage.
Yeah, their Wicked Apple, which I thought, or no, it's Haunted Apple. I thought it was Wicked Apple for wicked people, but whatever.
Well, we have to be careful. Wicked the movie's coming out soon, which is not for children. Your children shouldn't go see it.
I'm not going to go see it.
I will. I love the musical. I love the book more. Again, the book is not for children. Do not give the book to your children.
I like the musical. I'm not going to watch a movie version of it.
Cheers.
So, Con Air.
Oh, Con Air.
For some reason, we open on explaining the U.S. Rangers because it's so crucial to the movie that we know that Poe was a Army Ranger or U.S. Ranger.
This movie spends almost all of Poe's dialogue reminding you that he is in fact a good, upstanding citizen.
Yeah, it's super.
And then he just
American.
accidentally murders a man.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think it's trying really hard to make an establishment that he's a badass. Granted, I don't know the state of war movies at this time or military movies.
I kind of do, and let me tell you, this was not the thing. Hey, Rangers. There's not a lot of movies specifically for the Rangers. You gotta dig a little bit if you're interested in the historical topic of the U.S. Rangers. Most of what was coming out around this time was there was a lot of TV-based war movies that were then getting put on DVD and shown on big screen.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, let's be real, World War II is always and will always be a topic of interest to white dads everywhere.
Yeah, it's pre-9/11 as well, so we don't have that surge of patriotism.
And let's be very clear, 9/11 war movies are very different than historical war movies. Those are usually very patriotic, but in we came together to overcome this terrible thing. Whereas the post 9/11 scene became very much more action-packed with a little bit of unrealistic fear. Yeah,
we're going from The Great Escape or All Quiet on the Western Front. Well, that's a German movie, but
same idea.
Yeah, to what we've got nowadays, where
get down, Mr. President.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
or 1917, that kind of action.
This fits nowhere within the realm of the U.S. war movies that came out during this time period. Not even really afterwards. Granted, there was a wave that I think this does fall into, and this is not even the start. This is kind of in the middle, and we see the trend to this day of using U.S. military service as a background reason why your character knows how to kick ass.
Yeah.
Usually, it's a Marine. Usually that's the cop-out that the movies go for, especially action movies.
I was in the top of my Marine class.
I was a Navy SEAL for X amount of years. That's usually the route they go. Well, so it's kind of refreshing to see them pull the Rangers.
Well, and it's also interesting because, before this movie, Nic Cage was in a 1990 movie called Firebirds, which is... It's a very poor...
Yeah,
it's not a mockbuster, but it tries to be the Top Gun of helicopter movies.
It sure does, yes. Yeah, by this point in his career, Nic Cage definitely knew how to be, the badass main character, and also had enough military, roles, in a way, so that he had, I wouldn't say a good understanding of how to hold oneself, but he had enough to call it done.
You're saying he was an actor?
Yes. But let's be real. Nic Cage, does more research on a role than most, I think. So. Fair.
And I mean, we haven't really even got into, his fully, because these three movies kicked off his, quote-unquote, badass phase. Because, I mean, we've got Snake Eyes that came out later, Gone in 60 Seconds.
Good one.
Captain Corelli's Mandolin, Wind Talkers, Lord of War. We have more war movies of him coming down the line.
And you can see a difference. By the time he gets to Lord of War, I think he's perfected the military stance and speak and stuff. This one, he is still pulling very heavily from his inspiration in his early career. And also, his accent for a country trailer bumpkin just tickles my fancy.
It makes me think of a slight deviation from his character in Raising Arizona.
I was 100% going to say that. I feel like he just reused the accent from Raising Arizona.
Yeah, it's close enough.
It is, but whereas one was a bumbling idiot, and so the goofy accent fit and added this charm, every time this character opens his mouth to speak, I go, oh yeah, that's what you sound like.
Yeah, no wonder the South has a stereotype of being bumpkins.
I'm also not sure what part of the South this is supposed to be from.
Alabama.
That's,
It is Alabama.
I know that's what he claims. That accent, though, is not from there.
I don't know. I mean, Sean Connery's Scottish and no one else has his accent.
That's because he spends an awful lot of time sounding like him.
Yes.
If you get paid to sound that way, you'd sound more that way.
Well, that I don't know. Apparently, Sean Connery, that him and his brothers all talk like that, but no one else in his town does.
Yeah, that does make sense. Some of my favorite actors have also admitted that they taught themselves their accent as a child as a bit of a joke, and just haven't stopped doing it. So, sure, why not? This, however, is somewhere between Alabama meets South Carolina, which are two very different Southern accents for those who know. They know. He's mushed them together, which, again, it worked for Raising Arizona. It's weird in this movie, but it adds nothing and it takes away nothing, so I don't care.
It adds a level of quirkiness to this movie because, like you said, this movie is a bit of a mess, but it's great at the same time because we go from him being this badass to...
He's badass for all of 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Because he immediately kills a man.
No, not even that. Badass to meeting his girl, really cheesy romantic music on top of it.
It's so cheesy.
But for some reason, because she's at this bar, she's the hot thing that every dickhead drunkard is after.
And of course, Nic Cage is the most beautiful man in the world.
Oh, sure, with his short hair.
Well, I think the goal was for him to grub up real good, like a lot of other men actors in an action film. Nic Cage, he does grub up. I don't know if it's real good, because I'm not a Nic Cage fangirl?
Well, that's the thing, is like we're in this era where it's not even like griming up because like our action heroes are still very much so.
They look like they showered this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Oh yeah, no. Nic Cage doesn't look like he missed a shower ever in prison.
No, and I mean honestly, this part is a little stupid too because they're
stupid.
Well, they're trying so hard to make him seem like he's calmed down. He used to be this hothead, but
see, okay, that's the part that I didn't understand either. Is because what part was he ever the hothead? He was just in the Rangers. Are they like well known for being off the rockers? Because I haven't heard that doesn't seem like a stereotype that translates to movies very well.
No, or like he was a hothead in high school, or because he was an Army Ranger, he thought he was hot shit. But I think it's a way to like try and make his
appearance in jail sound reasonable.
Well, I think what it's supposed to be is it's supposed to set up that he was a hothead and he used his skills not in a productive or used in a good what's the term?
A moral way?
Using a moral way, yeah, that's probably the right way to say it. He was a rabble-rouser as a youth.
Sure, they barely show us, they hardly tell us.
Yeah.
And, I won't lie, the rabble-rousing that he does just seems to be standing in the wrong place at the wrong fucking time.
Well, not even at the wrong time. I mean, it's just, it makes me think of a little bit of, like, that scene in Joe Dirt where Kid Rock's character's, I'm gonna marry Brandy one day.
Yeah, no, 100%.
It's that, but it goes nowhere because they go right into the fight as they're trying to, like, get home or leave the bar.
I still am so confused about the circumstances that lead to his arrest. I will not lie to you.
Okay, so I have a little bit on that I think on that because it's very brief. One, also, I think the slow-mo of this is really bad. Of like
it's so bad.
In the middle of the fight. But like, what happens is the dude pulls the knife and he kills the guy.
I did catch that part.
But the friends take the knife. It's like for a flash of a second, the knife's in the mud, and the friends take the knife. So it doesn't look like the guy had the knife. It looks like Nic Cage Poe just killed him.
Okay, this is how poorly this scene is shot. Brian, I forced him to watch this because I'm like, oh my god, you haven't seen Con Air? We're watching Con Air, and I'm not going to tell you anything about it other than Nic Cage's hair is natural in this. It's not a wig. And Brian goes, okay, I don't know what that means. I was like, you will. We're watching this scene, and Brian goes, wait, why is he in trouble? He took that guy's knife and stabbed him with it. I mean, brutal, but like, clearly self-defense. I go, no. That's not what happened. He shoved his nose up into his brain. Killed him instantly. And Brian goes, oh, well, that's even more self-defense-esque than stabbing the guy with his own knife. And I go, I know. Don't ask me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of what it is, one, we get a little bit more of, he's a man of principle. He won't admit he was wrong or that he's guilty, but his lawyer sways him because his daughter, he's like, I can get you like 3 years. You'll see your daughter by the time she's 2 and she'll remember you. And then the judge throws the hammer at him because it's, I mean, this scene is to show some chink in his armor that he's not this total badass. His weak spot's his daughter and his wife.
Sure, no, I agree with his character. The thing that doesn't make sense is, like, the judge being like, that's the man who I'm gonna throw the book at.
Well, I see, that's the thing. I don't know why he throws the book at him. I think it's just this whole idea to like, give him more cred of being this badass of, your hands are as registered as a deadly weapon. One, that's not a fucking thing.
It's not a thing that can happen.
But it depends on the state of, if you have the training to kill and you use it, then you could potentially be charged for excessive force.
Sure,
but not using your arms as a deadly weapon.
No, and also, like, the self-defense clause here is so blatantly obvious, and also there's witnesses.
Well,
and so I'm very confused as to, like, why the judge is like, all of these drunk people at the bar don't count! Not one!
Well, I think it's just a movie trope that's been around for quite a while, because if I remember right, well, it came from what I was reading, something in like the 80s and 90s when we had the rise of kung fu movies and people were trying to pick fights with all these action stars. And it was just this rumor that they started, like, to stop people messing with them, is like, I could fight you, but my hands are registered as a deadly weapon, and if I kill you, I go to jail, so I'm not starting shit with you guys.
That is a good, like, oh man, can't get you sort of thing. Yeah, okay.
Or don't fuck with me kind of thing is like, instead of like, oh, I have weapons on me, or like, hey, I'm dangerous because I know martial arts, or I'm trained in military combat. You're saying legally, my hands are registered to kill you.
These hands are rated E for everyone. Good, yeah.
Yeah. But also, there are parts of this movie that are so bad, because, like...
I'd say this is honestly... Granted, this part makes no sense, and yet the rest of the movie makes less sense, so...
Well, not even just that. The judge in this scene is just so stiff in everything he delivers.
He has never acted a day before in his life, or he's never sat down a day before in his life. I'm not sure which.
Sir, I am sentencing you to the maximum of 10 years in prison.
Which, okay, I believe that he's being tried for second-degree murder. That's the charge I believe is happening, because assault, he's already killed a man, so assault doesn't work, right? 10 is not the max for second-degree murder. In any state, as far as I can find. So, I don't know what he's talking about.
I think it's manslaughter is what he's being
charged for. Is
that
what
for.
It's...
Yeah, because it's an accidental death. It's not intentional.
I mean, he's trained military, though.
But it's not...
Somebody's lawyer fucked up real good, and I think it's both.
No, it's Cage's lawyer saying
he fucked up the worst.
Yeah, saying that, oh, you'll get a lighter sentence if you plead guilty.
Yeah, the other thing that's unrealistic is how fast all of this trial stuff happened. This child would have been born and 10 years old before Cage actually goes to jail. But, you know, whatever. It doesn't matter.
It's a speed trial. We have to throw the book at this one dangerous U.S. Ranger.
Yeah, who's just drinking out at the bar over there in the middle of fuck nowhere.
Not even. We don't even see him take a drink. No. He meets his girl. They kiss. She tells him she's pregnant, and then they dance for like 2 seconds, and then run in the rain and get assaulted.
Okay, so that is something that I did notice, and I think this is a Nic Cage insert into the movie because it fits his MO really well. This character is so squeaky clean. He doesn't drink. He never smokes. He never really cusses outside of, like, certain circumstances. Like, this is the best behaved character, and I 100% think Cage did this.
Well, I do wonder a little bit, because I wonder if he's just written as that pure action hero, because that prison montage we get right after this.
Yeah, of him just writing letters to his daughter.
Yeah, making friends, staying buff. Even during the riots, he's a good old boy, staying like just in his bunk, not doing shit.
He never leaves his cell.
Educating himself, learning Spanish while he's at it. For some reason, why does he need to know Spanish? He never uses it again later on in this movie.
And that's the thing that confuses me. There are so many side characters in this movie that could have explained characters or plot. Like, we could have been introduced to one of the other, soon to be on a plane with this man, inmates, who does speak Spanish, and Cage feels the need to reach out to him. No. So he learns Spanish, but that's not what happens. He just suddenly is like, you know what? I feel like starting Duolingo. Yeah. I want the owl to yell at me every day.
Instead, his cellmate is none of this.
No, his cellmate is a normal random man.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Which is another, like, weird... Okay, this is a very 90s thing where it's like, look how progressive he is. He's friends with an African-American. And it's like, okay, alright, calm down, movie. Like, we're good. We're here for action. I don't need this man to be so squeaky clean.
I don't agree with that, just because, I mean, we have, like, buddy cop comedies,
I know.
Starsky and Hutch, we had...
I 100% agree. I think this movie is going the extra mile to, like, really try and rein every possible scenario in here.
Yeah. I don't know.
Because there's a lot of mildly offensive jokes coming real soon. From one character.
One character.
From one character, which is honestly impressive because there's a lot of characters who had the opportunity. And so I feel like we're maybe, like, presenting, like, oh, no, look, everyone else is a very nice person. And it's just that guy.
Well, Simon's a good guy, too.
Well, yes, of course.
Yeah. The one thing I will say about this scene, bullshit doing pull-ups on the sprinkler line.
Yeah, no, please don't even hang your laundry on the sprinkler line. Like, that's just how that sucker gets set off. Also, why is there a sprinkler line in the cell? That's a hanging hazard.
Old prison.
I guess old prison. But also, this is, like, a fictional prison, so, like, could have been anywhere, man.
Yeah, true. Well,
it's also, no, it's not an old prison. They say it's one of the new state-of-the-art prisons. Later on.
No, that's where they're taking others to.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah. That's where they're taking all these other convicts to.
Okay, good. We were about to have a long discussion about the fire protection in a prison.
And I think maybe you're getting mixed up with state-of-the-art aircraft.
That it is supposedly a state-of-the-art aircraft, which we will discuss the actual aircraft later.
Yeah. It's very much fiction. But we do get with all the letters back and forth in the narration, we get the July 14th to set the date to return the importance of the bunny.
And really solidify this as a summer movie.
We'll see you later.
Yeah, so cute.
Yeah, my mom hates that I remind her that July 14th is also her birthday, and this is where this movie's set.
Oh, you make her watch this every year on her birthday, Nico?
No, I don't. I just remind her that this movie exists, and
you should find a list of every movie that mentions her birthday.
I think this is, like, the one.
Oh, man, we will hunt for more. Don't worry.
Oh, yeah. Also, Bastille Day.
Oh, there you go. 2 for 1.
But from here, we get the unveiling of the state-of-the-art Con Air.
Yeah, which is fictional. Don't worry. This isn't how we transport people.
And every movie, if it always focuses on the fail-safes or the state-of-the-artness of whatever they're working with, it is going to fail. Look at Deep Blue Sea. Look at Resident Evil.
Look at every Mission Impossible movie ever created. Also, what's the one where they steal from casinos?
Ocean's 11.
Or all the Oceans. All the Oceans.
I've never seen Ocean's movies, and I haven't watched past the third Mission Impossible.
You don't need any more Mission Impossibles. They're all the same after that one.
I've been told because I could see it. So I hated the first Mission. Well, I liked the first Mission Impossible enough. I didn't hate it.
Sure.
The second one is the one I hated.
It is garbage.
And then the third one, it's like, okay, I can see where you guys are upping the ante, making it a little bit over the top, becoming the Fast and the Furious of spy movies.
It sure does become that. So you haven't seen the one where Brad Pitt almost kills himself jumping onto a real-life airplane?
No.
Okay, well, we'll start with that one and work our way backwards.
I'll work up to it.
Okay.
I've told people I'm going to watch those in the Oceans movies.
The Ocean movies are legitimately a good time. You just get through Mission Impossible because, at this point, I think they're required by law.
I guess. I know I disappoint so many people with what I haven't seen. So.
I'm impressed, honestly, that you've managed to avoid it. As long as you have.
I watch a lot of horror and Japanese shit. So.
I can tell. This plane, though, is based off of a real plane for all of us who are super airplane nerds and or autistic. So, in case you were wondering, it is a real plane. This is the C-123. There are 3 of them throughout the movie. They were all real planes. They all actually flew. They just had a paint job that said Con Air on the side. One of them was sold. It was just a normal plane. One of them was sold, and it horribly crashed in Alaska, killing 3 people. One of them was gifted to the historic Wendover Airfield, and is on display still to this day.
Where's the Wendover Airfield?
No idea.
Great crack research we do here.
No problem. I do know what mountain that the airplane crashed to in Alaska, though. It was Mount Haley. Mount Healy? Probably Mount Healy. But yeah, unfortunately that one did kill 3 people. There was also several models of the plane, mostly for the inside. Those were all filmed on set in Hollywood. They don't exist anymore. One of the sets did squish a man, unfortunately.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of accidents, though.
No, that's... For the movie, that's, as far as I can tell, the only real accident, which is impressive because there's a lot of people and a lot of stunts and explosives going on in this movie, so I'm glad no one else was hurt, but unfortunately, it did kill Bill Swartz, who this movie is dedicated to if you get to the end of the credits. He was a welder.
Shame.
Yeah. But that's impressive. That's the only thing that happened, because, again, 3 real airplanes that did actually fly. Several sets, some just stuck to the ground, a lot that moved. There was a surprising amount of work put into this movie that no one seems to talk about except for the airplane people. Yeah. They were, like, in love with this.
Well, that's the thing with, like, how cult of a movie this has become, or how iconic it has become. There's really nothing about the production. It's just like, yep, we made the movie, we moved on.
Yeah.
Which
the only stuff I could find was from, like, super nerdy airplane people, and they talked about the actual airplane. They didn't care at all about this movie.
Oh, that's amazing. That's like gun nerds in movies who are like, yeah, that gun can't do that. That gun can't do. Or like us with buildings, we're like...
It's like us with buildings, because this is like the same group of people who also talk this way about trains, and don't care anything about train movies. It's the same group of people, but with airplanes. So I did learn a lot about the actual C-123s, and it has honestly nothing to do with this movie. Because, like, totally, like, the inside's so fake. It's not even the right dimensions. There's no way to even, like, have modified this plane to look that way. Like, it's 100% fake.
It's just cool from the outside.
Even the airport that they're supposed to land in is fake, which some people enjoyed. Some people were really mad. They were like, why couldn't they have just picked a real airport? The airport they're supposedly, like, going to land at is, like, totally fictional. They did film at a real airport, but the one that they're, like, claiming made up.
Yeah, it's like any movie where it's like, oh, it's in some small town. What is it? What small town? It doesn't matter. They're all the same.
Well, I mean, the airport that they're supposed to be landing in to, like, trade off mass, like, prisoners is supposedly fairly big, and we did use Las Vegas, which, you know, famously not small or unknown.
Yeah.
So, like, why did we choose a fake airport?
Probably scheduling and ease.
Probably, but again, they did film on site. They just chose not to say where they were. Like, why? You've already got the airport.
Yeah, who knows?
I don't know. The rest of it was all filmed in deserted locations before they were deconstructed or blown up. In fact, the one explosion scene with the girl who's playing with the crazy man, they were already scheduled for demo and they blew up the building themselves.
Yeah, they did that with a couple of these things too. So, but yeah, it's a fun unveiling scene. I mean, it sets up, hey, this is what we're going to be stuck in. Gives a little hope for Poe's future of just. A couple couple hours, he's going to be a free man.
I do love that this movie is like, yeah, we the U.S. have the budget to fly people around the country when they're released, and definitely don't hand them bus tickets and call it a day.
Well, this is the one part where, like, in the interviews, they said, yeah, this is the most fictional thing about this movie is
we don't fly them.
We would not fly our convicts at all.
We don't even fly our free guys. We hand them Greyhound bus tickets and say good luck.
Yeah.
Hope you make your connection.
I can see it. But this is also where we get the setup of... I don't remember exactly who these officers are. I know one is with... I can't remember if one's with Homeland Security or what other the one's part of.
I don't care. So here's how I broke it down, because other than the fact that these are famous actors who I know vaguely, I don't remember anyone's dang name, because they all have funny nicknames. I don't remember what government body any of these people are. The only thing I know is there's the man who owns the plane, and the plane's expensive. And then there's the guy who's out for vengeance and is in charge of the criminals. And they are not friends.
Yeah, that's Vince, who we get an establishment that he's a dick because he pulls up in a very flashy car, parks in the ADA parking spot.
Backs into the ADA parking spot.
Yes.
The most dick move. The only way it could have been worse is if he took up 2 ADA parking spots.
Yeah, it's cheesy and dynamic.
It's very cheesy.
I think there's only one ADA spot in front of this.
That's why he could only take up the one.
Yeah.
It reminds me very much, too, of the way they filmed it, of, like, NCIS Miami, where there's, like, unnecessary rock music happening in the background, and everyone's got their sunglasses going, oh my god, it was this guy.
I have no clue.
Crystal and I will indoctrinate you later, don't worry.
No.
Horatio is the greatest detective to ever exist.
I have no clue who that is.
Again, indoctrination coming soon.
If he does not hold a candle to Columbo,
he might be Columbo's great-grandson, if they weren't probably the same age.
Really?
Maybe. Might be a little younger than Columbo. Hard to say.
Which era of Columbo, though? Early Columbo or pre-dementia Columbo?
I believe CSI Miami is meant to be set in the late 90s, early 2000s, based off the bikini trends of Miami itself. Horatio, though, might be immortal. He never ages. He looks the same throughout however many seasons of CSI Miami there are, / maybe still running. I'm not sure. I can't keep up.
I left off after CSI 1.
Well.
And like the first 2 seasons.
Well, you are about to be indoctrinated because this movie and CSI Miami have the same soul beating in them. The obnoxious music, the unnecessary sunglasses, just the amount of, I know who did it, just really shines through. And I think that's the same group of fans, honestly, who own this movie also watch that show.
I'll take your word for it.
I believe firmly in this.
I have no point of reference, so I have no clue.
I know 3 people, and all of them like this movie and that show, so...
That's like me saying, all these people like Lord of the Rings, and then they like this one other show, so they must like this show.
Yes, correct.
But like you said, this scene is supposed to set up Vince and Larkin being a little bit in conflict with each other.
The rivalry.
Yeah, Larkin's there to explain the other convicts and give us like the little rundown of how bad these guys are.
I love this run through. These people are so fictional.
Oh yeah, Diamond Joe, Cyrus the Virus Grisham.
Which, by the way, in case you ever Wikipedia this movie, you should know that Cyrus the Virus is the name of a rapper who is real and does actual music. I've not listened to any of his work. Just wanted you to know that there's 2 different wiki pages for him.
Great. But also, the conflict that they set up, I think what's good about it, too, is the way they set it up is not through, oh, I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah, it's jurisdiction bullshit.
Not even so much that. That's like your standard thing.
Yeah.
Where they really have their butting of heads is when Larkin asks him about the thesaurus dictionary to explain some words to him. Yes,
this is very cheesy.
Well, it's also to set up that Larkin is very bookish.
Yeah.
Whereas Vince is a man of action.
Yep.
And so...
The classic, problem here.
Well, yeah, it's their clashing is their 2 different ideologies on how to handle people.
Very much so. Also, all of the inmates being brought onto the plane are all described and then compared to every serial killer who has been famous in the last 20 to 30 years.
Oh, it's so annoying.
And they pick ones that honestly have nothing in common with the, villain that they're portraying. Like, this man, he's done it all. He's gambled, he's done drugs, he's murdered a man, he's like Dahmer. I'm like, okay, we didn't read up on Dahmer, did we?
No.
Those things are not comparable.
He had the charisma of Bundy with the sex drive and appetite of Dahmer.
It's like, okay. They did. It feels very much like someone very quickly, scanned through the wiki page of, famous serial killers and just, threw them in there. Which honestly makes this better because all of the things these people are being accused of is, this is why they're the worst of the worst, is, family annihilator. Found out his wife was cheating, flew all the way back to kill her family and her dog. And you're like, oh, okay. All right.
It makes me think of a little bit of how Suicide Squad brought up a bunch of these characters and stuff.
Yes, it feels so similar.
I do kind of want to joke like Suicide Squad where they show up and they're like, what, also parodying Men in Black of, why are you here, sir? We're the worst of the worst of the worst, sir!
It kind of is that way, because there's one who's the very eloquently spoken crazy man, and then there's the super violent crazy man, and then there's the Native American crazy man. They're just everything on this plane all at once. They got one guy locked up like he's Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, Cyrus the Virus.
Cyrus the Virus. Then they got this other guy over here, Steve Buscemi, who's just...
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Buscemi is way down the line.
He's coming, but he's just over here singing to Jesus.
Well... The best person that we get introduced to in this entire menagerie of villains
There's so many.
is Pinball, portrayed by
I do love
the amazing Dave Chappelle.
Yes, it's an amazing performance. I'm shocked, honestly, by... Again, these are all very famous people portraying all of these characters, and with the exception, maybe, of Trejo, who's, like, this is kind of the only character he played in the 90s.
Yeah, he's your very stereotypical, cartel-ish kind of mobster. He
didn't really break out until much later in his career from the stereotype. He did a lot of this.
Well, I haven't seen much of his movies outside of those stereotypes, so...
Same. I know he has a few. That he's not, the drug cartel. But this one is also during the time where he, like, purposely was making a lot of appearances in movies to play, like, the quote-unquote evil villain. Mm-hmm. And then, like, would die or, like, get shipped off a second later. It's just, like, a quick little, like, oh yeah, I'll be in your movie for a sec. No problem. So, like, I was expecting it from him. Everybody else in this movie, I was shocked by how much effort they put into the acting of their roles.
Well, even
it was good.
Well, even his role's good too. I mean,
his role is, he's got more lines than he normally does. I'm shocked.
Well, and the thing with this is it's also setting up Poe, who we do get the majestic smile and wind blowing through his hair in this scene.
This hair drives me up the fucking wall. It looks so stringy. It's too shampooed. He needs conditioner so badly. And he's got the receding hairline of a man who's in denial. It's, it's still long in the very, very front, but on the sides, not even the sides, the, like, middle sides, we're all the way back. We're way back.
Yeah.
And instead of cutting it short or styling it with some volume in the front to, like, help distract from...
He is a prisoner.
Yes.
And he's not going to have time to style his hair.
No, but he has time to meticulously maintain that beard mustache thing. And also, his hair is squeaky clean. And
they shower?
And the running joke of this movie is that he was gonna get a haircut when he got off the plane before he saw his lady and his daughter. And he just didn't have time, because he was too busy fending off villains.
Totally. Well, back to Johnny 23 real quick.
Of course.
Part of the reason his character is a good setup for this is he's there, all these people are there to contrast Poe's
angel-like behavior.
Yeah, angel-like behavior.
Yeah.
His very upstanding person, because there's a female cop on this, or prison guard, who, his name is Johnny 23 because he's raped 23 women.
Yeah, the worst of the worst people.
Rape 23 that they know of.
Yeah, they throw that into a lot of these characters.
But it's also to put this... Well, that's the thing, is like, it's those little lore that it builds up of, like,
True.
Why this is important, because he has his eye on the lady cop, and that puts her in danger, and gives Poe another reason to, later on, stay on the plane, and add conflict of why... Or, not conflict, but give him duty and purpose of why he should stay on the plane.
True. I also love the little, very obvious, pointed breadcrumbs that a true 90s action movie just really cannot be compared to when it comes to setting up a plot.
Oh, yeah.
We get into an argument on whether or not the secret cop who's going to ride the plane with everyone is allowed a gun.
Yep.
Sneaks the gun on. And then we find out that there's a weapons stash underneath the plane for no goddamn reason. It's just down there. It's not like anybody can use it, so they're like, it's fine.
How else are they gonna move their weapons around, Chris?
Yeah, why couldn't we have 2 flights? It makes no sense. My God.
Efficiency.
Yeah, nobody else is allowed weapons on this plane at all. Like, I mean...
The cops aren't gonna... Well, that's the thing. It's so state-of-the-art. Nothing could go wrong. These prisoners are all gonna be good little... soldiers and stay in their cells.
In their locked cages that are welded to the side of the aircraft. Yeah. Okay, this is the other thing that I'm confused by. Because the whole movie rests upon the point that this is a state-of-the-art aircraft that costs, it's 90s, so millions of dollars. Not billions.
$1 million.
$1 million in 90s money. So, like, I don't know, $6 billion in US money. And so, like, clearly that's why we can't shoot it down. Right? That's the whole premise of this movie. That's the whole reason why everyone's not dead at the end, right?
Yeah.
What is state-of-the-art about this plane? Because, okay, I looked into the actual airplane it's based off of, the C-23. And while it is state-of-the-art for the 90s, it's not state-of-the-art enough to not be shot out of the sky. And they took out all of the state-of-the-art features to put the prisoners in. So I don't understand what, like, there's still a pilot, so it's not self-driving. It doesn't even have air conditioning.
Here's what's state-of-the-art about it, Chris.
There's no peanuts on board.
No peanuts or in-house snacks, but...
There's in-house insulin, but that's it.
But there's more legroom.
There's a shit ton of legroom, you're right.
Yeah,
why is there so much room between passengers?
Make sure that they can't bunch up or something?
I don't know, normally we just shove them on a school bus with no seatbelts and call it a day, but, whatever.
No. But also, like, with this scene, too, is, like, so much of this movie, the writing is rough, but it's
so rough, but it's fun.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's because it is rough and just that level of cheesiness where it's not, it's not intentionally trying to be serious about it, too, because that's the thing with, like, horror comedies that I find super annoying with, especially American ones, is where they try and be very serious with it, and it's like, you guys aren't playing into the goofiness of this.
This one plays
at
in.
all.
This one plays in so hard.
No, exactly.
Not a one of these villains is anything more than what you have already been introduced to, and every actor took that research so seriously that, like, they did everything in their power to just become that thing.
Yeah. No. Well, and also the thing with it too is we talk about it. Some of the movie is rough, but what it builds up is what's great too. Is like there's these little inklings of things that we get to hear and like build up and like
and there's so much going on all the time. You cannot be bored watching this.
Well, and like Pinball using his humor to distract with some very insensitive jokes, but are great.
So insensitive.
Because like when things do start to go to shit, it's his comedy that's like everyone's kind of distracted from it a little bit and catches you off guard when he talks to the Native American guy, where he's like, I hope after this you don't hold a grudge against me. And
lights him on fire.
And as he's on fire and being hauled away from this guy, he's saying, look at this, the last Mohican is burning.
Like, it's such an insensitive line. It would never pass nowadays.
Oh, I love it.
But it is the comedy that was needed to, like, because, like, as this is happening, as this man is burning alive, hell is breaking loose. Yeah. Every passenger on this plane who has no business being free is like, it's time for me to take over. Yeah. And you're like, all right, what well-staged bullshit is this? Because people are pulling shivs out of places they have no business being.
I'm just thinking of the James Cameron Titanic. Yeah. Romeo and Juliet, but on this, and slams the Titanic.
On the boat.
The Titanic. Prison riot, but on this.
It's honestly, yes, that's what's happening.
Well, and also, so that's the thing that I always find it weird in these types of movies where whenever there's convicts and they're not good people, they say insensitive and horrible shit, and then people are like, "Oh, why would you say that in this day and age?" And it's like, because they're horrible people.
I was going to say that is something that I actually was impressed with. While this movie, other than the bad language, doesn't really get too graphic or intense, it does remind you very vividly that these are actually the worst people.
No, like, exactly.
And, like, there's no doubting it. There's no, like, oh, it could be a badly written joke. No, like, these are written and acted as the worst people on the planet. And it works. It makes it so that you kind of hope that they burn to death.
Yeah, you don't want any of these to live. And it's also, in this chaos, we get the insulin breaking, or not the insulin breaking, the needles breaking.
Yeah.
And it's also just showing why Poe's a good stand-up guy, because he's a goddamn American hero. True. He's going to stay on this plane for his cellmate and this woman cop who, without him, aren't going to make it.
Yeah.
But what it does, too, is it sets up this, not just this moral conundrum, but a very clear line in the sand of good and evil. These people are good, these people are evil. We want that. And that's what's great about this is, it is that level of cheesiness where there's no ambiguity.
But that's what makes the rest of the movie work. Because if there was a little bit of ambiguity about any of these other people, the insane action and deaths that are about to happen, you could have some reservation. Because we've set them up to be so bad that, like, not even hell themselves want these people, them being smacked into the side of a billboard going 800 miles an hour is delightful, as opposed to being horrific.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then we also get the iconic welcome to Con Air.
Yeah, no, this movie's as cheesy as you think it is.
So many one-liners. And
There's
memeability.
only one-liners.
No, there's more dialogue than that.
Yeah, but not by our main character. He only speaks in, like, one or two sentences at a time. From the time he stops talking about his daughter to the time he reunites with his daughter. This man only really has one-liners.
Yeah, there's not really time for a monologue in this movie.
Also, Nic Cage's character speaks so goddamn slowly, we wouldn't have time for him to finish more than one sentence.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 2-hour movie.
It is a 2-hour movie, somehow.
We cut back to HQ, and the dudes are on edge. I do love that Trejo is super creepy in all this.
Yes, he does a great job.
And Malkovich is great, too.
Yeah.
But there's also this bit of setting up now the goals of the convicts, and also the DEA being a bunch of assholes willing to blow even their own guards away. Mm-hmm. But it sets up a reason for Poe to get off. Mm-hmm. Of, hey, if he doesn't get off, he's never gonna go back home, as far as we can tell. They're gonna be living the high life on the beach away from his daughter.
I do love that, like, they are like, yeah, if we kidnap the plane, you can't claim that you were a hostage. You're just gonna have to live in isolation forever. Yeah. No, okay.
Take a plea deal. I mean, there's probably plenty of ways for them to get out.
I mean, probably, but, like, still. There's not a whole lot of actual logic put into this movie. No, not at all. Well, and on top of that, like, he's playing both sides a little bit, too, because he's trying to catch their eye through helping out, like, hey, I'll help you guys with whatever you guys are doing, so that way he's drawing the attention away from the lady cop and his friend who's actively dying.
Yeah. And it also puts the group of prisoners in a conundrum, because this chaos killed a bunch of people, and they're supposed to be making a transfer at the next stop
to make it look like everything's still in check.
And the 3 people they need are dead.
Because they needed, specifically, white dudes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what puts his buddy in an issue, is because, hey, Cage is the only one who knows this dude needs insulin. Yeah. Well, and on top of that, because they're trying to... Because Johnny 23 does get free, and this is the part where he's like, oh, I'm gonna enjoy myself a little bit. You're gonna be teardrop number 24.
Whoa. Yeah.
Can you imagine if that's your nickname and you have to announce, or like you have to get a tattoo every time? Like
you have to like change your nickname every time?
Yeah.
That'd be a problem. Like that would be annoying, right?
Yeah, that'd be annoying. But on top of that, it's showing that he's quick. His quick thinking is that he's confronting these guys, also getting their attention of trying to like, hey, not cause issues amongst all of them. Yeah. But also saving the cop while he's at it.
Yes, he's honestly going so above and beyond that it kind of hurts.
Mm-hmm. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, because he could be free.
Well, not yet.
Not yet.
But the plan is eventually discovered by Larkin, and it's... I do like this bit, because it sets it is the DEA, by the way.
Of course it is.
It sets them on even grounds with Cyrus, because they kind of know the plan now. Mm-hmm. And it's a well-written build-up of, hey, we've got this... We know their plan now. We know this isn't going to go well for... Even though they don't know what's happened on the plane yet. Yeah. But it gives the viewers, like, that kind of... not fully parallel action, but gives them enough knowledge to understand that, hey, things are going to start ramping up even quicker now.
True.
And also, like, I do think it's kind of funny when the cell does explode. Yeah. The door feels such like a bad 3D effect door. Yes. It makes me wonder if at one point they had maybe thought about 3D for I don't think so.
I don't think so, based solely off of the other explosions in the film being all very practical effect explosions, and I think this is the only CG explosion that happens, so. Yep.
And so now they're here for the transfer, which, this is where we get introduced to Garland Green. Yes. The Marietta Mangler killed 30 people on the East Coast. Wow. Which, I do love all this dramatic build-up of...
They really do just give them the whole 9 yards, don't they?
Yeah, getting out the freak show now. Yeah. Buscemi is great in this role,
he does so well. This is a fun role for him.
So calm the whole movie. And doesn't do a whole lot either.
He honestly does nothing.
Yeah, he's...
He goes to a tea party with a little child and then sits and sings. That's kind of it.
Yeah, no, it's so... While he does have some, like, weird lines to, like, kind of stir things up a little bit with Poe, but not really anything after that.
No, he really doesn't do much.
No.
He's just creepy.
Yeah, which would annoy me in any other movie of just having this one weird character that does nothing the rest of the movie.
But everyone else is also weird, and he's just somehow the weirdest.
If that.
Not even really.
No. But we get Poe's wife dragged into this too, now that the DEA agent knows, or Larkin knows knows that Poe's not a bad guy 100%, or he's trying to figure out what's going on more so.
I love that this agent, despite this giant crisis happening, takes the time to contact this man's wife to be like, by the way, you won't be seeing your husband today. I hope everything's okay. Nice.
It's a moment to reinforce that Poe isn't your average just convict. It's setting itself a little bit apart from like Die Hard.
Yeah, definitely.
Where
they leave him to rot.
Well, not just that. He's supposed to, in Die Hard, your protagonist is supposed to be this average Joe, and that changed action movies for a very long time. Still does.
True.
But Poe, on the other hand, is that classically, he's a commando, he's a trained badass.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also, we also forgot that Pinball got left behind in them trying to escape. The feds did finally catch up to them.
Yeah.
But,
oh darn.
Yeah, it's just so, it's a moment to try and give Poe some cred on both. It's also to put, again, more even siding between Cyrus and the feds.
And then also to make a bigger rift between, the two governments, right? Like there's I'm here to defend my plane, but also there's a good guy on board versus, but the worst of the worst are on board. We should just nuke them all.
Yeah. And it's just like, well, why is your husband on this? Like, they're trying to hide some... Like, his wife's gonna hide the fact that he's a serial killer or something.
I mean, a lot of wives do, though.
Or they just leave. They don't hide it. They're just like, I'm done with this shit.
True. There's a lot of denial. Yeah. There's a lot of denial.
Casey.
A lot, yeah, just so much denial.
There is that part when they do finally escape that Pinball's like trying to catch up with them. They find his corpse in the holding cell.
Yes.
Or not holding cell, the cargo bay.
Yeah, because, can't breathe no air.
Yeah. But his use of the body
to write this long-winded message on it while he's not being caught and then push it out of the plane is so stupid, but it works.
Oh, it's great.
Because they even address in the movie, like, look how long it's taking him to with a Sharpie write on this guy. Wouldn't it be funny if he got caught? Just kidding.
Well, and also the body falling is great, too, because it just takes so long
to get. It takes so long.
And it's so intact still.
And the best part about this is not only does it take so long for him to write the message, push the body out of the plane, and for it to land finally, right? Mm-hmm. But then it is almost instantaneous that information is in the hands of the correct man.
No, exactly.
It's like, I know that man personally. Let me just call him up right now.
Well, the whole part of it was the only way to bring his wife in. Of like, so why did he leave a message for me?
Yeah,
I don't know. Like his wife's gonna know what he's doing on that plane or what's happening on the plane.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. And Poe is forced to kill again.
Oh my god. But again, it's self-defense. He never kills without a reason.
Exactly.
He's always the good guy.
And it's interlaced with questioning the wife, which further establishing he's a good guy and would be home unless for a good reason. Yeah.
But it does add, this is one of the few times that I think the writing's actually clever. Mm-hmm. It does add street cred for him, because the second he comes back up from the holding, one of the villains is like, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. He's dead, isn't he? And he's like, had to do it. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Well, they
don't even question it. They're just like, yep, a murderer, one of us.
Well, it's Buscemi's character, the serial killer, Green.
Yeah, but the way that Green phrases it, all of the other bad guys on the plane are, instead of using that knowledge as like time to keep my eye on you, like his character does, all the other villains are like, a murderer. Good. A friend. He's definitely not going to want to land the plane.
Yeah. No, exactly.
It's one of the few times that I feel like the writing truly is clever, as opposed to just being action.
Well, I think what it is, and why you think it's clever, or why it is clever, not why you think, why it is clever, is because before this, we have that Poe is educated, or he's self-educated.
He taught himself real good Spanish.
In the dossier of Cyrus.
True.
We learn that he's a genius criminal mastermind. But what's great about Green's character is that the way he uses his intelligence is it's not out in the open that he's an intelligent guy. He says one line like that, or he's very observant in what's going on. And so that's why he's calm. He's like, I'm not going to do any of this. Like, he's
wonderfully manipulative throughout the film.
Well, and also I think he's on to. I think it's a way of showing that he's on to.
From the get-go.
Poe.
Yeah.
That, hey, Poe, you're not who you say you are.
Yes.
Or also we got to bring in that, put the bunny back in the box.
Yes. Which is, the classic bit, because he saved up for a bunny somehow. They never really explain how he bought a bunny in prison.
It was in the commissary, and it's the only way it's the only one they had there.
Yeah, again, why the bunny is in the commissary was never explained. They're just like, it's the only one. And much like a video game where you have to save up 3,000 monies to buy the bunny, where in a shop that normally sells coffee, it feels silly, but I don't care.
Oh yeah, I mean it's great. It's that level of cheesiness that is he's supposed to say something badass. And
it's also in that accent, so it doesn't sound badass no matter what he would have said.
No, exactly. I think that's why they lean into it so well.
I agree.
Yeah. But also the taking of the plane, or them learning the DEA learning of the plot, also gives us some more action to this movie too, and sets up some other worked in items before where Vince the hothead is flying some helicopters. They're going to intercept. They don't care if any of the cops die on it. They're going to take that plane down.
Yeah.
But Larkin takes his car out to where they're going to be landing next.
Which I do love the back and forth that these two hardly on-screen characters have. Because every time they speak, because you have to, they're barely on film. Because we're so focused on Poe and, the shenanigans on the plane.
Well, and also
but when they're there, it's just constant, asshole rivalry, in a way.
And also, there's not really that back and forth between them. We had that one little conflict, then we have the conflict of how they should handle the plane landing.
And then they're just, in two separate locations bitching about each other. They're like, I'm going to take this plane down no matter what he says. And the other one's like, I'm going to steal his car and save that plane no matter what he says.
Yeah. No, it's great. Well, we forgot to mention that the reason they're thrown off the path is Pinball took out they took out the black box in Pinball, or the GPS, whatever.
It's the GPS because, okay, so that is something that the airplane people were upset about.
Yeah.
The fact that this movie got wrong is that this little box is the only way to track this plane. That's not how this box works. It was made up solely for the movie, and which does kind of make sense. Again, this is a convict plane. You'd want a tracking device of some kind, I would think. But I think you'd also want a, remote kill switch, which would have been possible in the 1990s.
Yeah.
So no, the box being removable and then just attach it to a different plane seat. No, that's not how it works. Also remember that this movie predates 9/11, which did change how we show planes in film quite heavily, because after that point, people became very aware of how planes actually work. There was that, and then there was a couple other tragedies that happened with big airline commercials that happened a few years later, and it changed how people understood basics of planes, not just how they flew, but the safety measures that are in place with them, and then also how do you know what happened on a plane? This is how you know. That was not common knowledge when this movie came out. That was for airplane nerd people, so I doubt anyone cared that this was wrong, except for the angry ranting people I found on the internet.
Yeah, it's a little opposite of where this was so fictional compared to Dr. Strangelove.
Yes.
Where Stanley Kubrick had to call up the prop guy of the FBI here is wondering how, you better have your resources because
they would like to know.
Yeah, they'd like to know how you got this so accurate.
Yes. Yeah, this is the opposite of that. Yeah. Literally nothing was correct other than the outside of the plane shape.
But that's what's great is that turned the popcorn movie where it's just something fun and stupid to watch.
Yes, and I honestly loved it. And I even though I know a great deal about airplanes just for need to of enjoyment of movies, right? Even I went, yeah, that's how that works, while watching this movie. It wasn't until this movie was done and I was researching to find out more about the actual plane model that, like, I run into these Reddit people who are like, that's not how it works.
Reddit.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's right, that's not how that works.
No. But also when the DEA Vince does find out that he's screwed up,
yeah,
the granny waving at him is so great.
So cheesy. But also, like, what a great story. She's gonna go home and tell the grandkids.
Yeah. Yeah. No. But then we get a little bit more of the serial killer where I do have questions because this is like the only big monologue we get from him where he's talking about like people say I'm insane. Like, but isn't it insane going in a 9 to 5, working an office every day to enjoy maybe 20 years of your life? But
I mean, I think it's to play to the average man.
Play to the average man and just show he's outside of the normalcy. But I do also question because he says, "Oh, I drove up and down the East Coast with a girl's head tied to my
Face.
head."
Yeah, like a hat.
Yeah, so I do wonder if he really is a serial killer because I wonder if maybe he probably did kill people, but I wonder like to what extent, because the way he plays it up makes me think of like how the stories of Dahmer when he was in prison played up on the craziness of what he did. And a lot of serial killers do this.
Yeah, that's true.
Or high-profile killers do this just so that way people don't mess with them.
And so also, like, you know, you talked about more of the fame that comes with it, because, like, even in jail, they talked about how, like, they had fan letters, and some of them meant why, like, people to marry via these, like, because they were now famous in prison.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, no, I think some of it, I mean, A, this is a silly movie. And B, I think knowing the talent that was behind this character, I have no doubt that maybe a couple of this was like, hey, I actually did way too much research for this role, much like half the rest of this cast. And so I think we should add a little bit of lines here and there to not just make him crazy, but to make him realistic and be playing up the crazy. Like, yeah, maybe he is wicked smart, but like, he's not actually that insane.
No, and I think it's just it's again playing up that the fact that maybe he's trying to stay safe still, so in case maybe Poe does try and do something to him.
True, and also just like most of these guys are not even talking to Poe, right? They're talking to the audience pretty directly.
Yeah,
and a 9 to 5 job being the most insane thing about your life is probably the most comparable that the average person can to this crazy character.
Well, and I also think it's the stereotypical thing of, oh, you're insane by doing what most of the world does for a living.
Oh, no, for sure.
But now it's into the airfield, which such over-the-top and dramatic music.
Okay, but the music for this movie did get this movie legitimately nominated for, I believe, an Oscar. Which is wild to me, because honestly, the two songs that were considered the top peak for this movie was the rock song, and the main song was How Do I Live? So, like, don't get me wrong, great music. Oscar-worthy? I don't know. Did it win? No, it did not. It won a couple of Razzies. I think it won a Razzie at some point, so, you know, that's...
Yes.
A Grammy, sorry.
No, it was up for a couple Razzies. Worst original song, How Do I Live?
Yeah.
And worst reckless disregard for human life and public property, which it won.
That does make sense because they did actually blow up some shit. But you'll see it also was nominated for a Grammy for the music as well. Again, not my pick, but I admire people's love of this song.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised with how many awards it was up for, because even like Oscars for original song and best sound. Yeah,
again, the music is good, and I do think that the hum of the aircraft being the background for pretty much the whole movie really adds attention. It comes and fades in and out purposefully. Like, the sound is good in this movie. Is it award-winning good? I don't think so. I think it's a little ironic.
Yeah.
But, like, that's the best.
Well, and also, the overtopness of this movie also, I wonder, just because, like, on paper it sounds so bad because this is so much planning that he had to do from jail.
Yes. And, like, then coordinate it with these other high-profile killers. And also a couple low-level ones, because there's, like, a handful of people who are not introduced to us as, like, the mass murderer. It's just, like, some dude who was also in prison with them.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, like, there's so much that it tries building up of don't kill the cops again don't kill the last cops and the airplane pilot because, we gotta be a good guy still. But hey, we need hostages. So he's trying to think on their same level, too.
Yeah. And I mean, it kind of works.
Mm-hmm. Also, I mean, it's showing that he's still the Ranger. He's still a good guy. And it shows he's good at playing the room.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it also, I think it's important because he has earned their trust, it gives him that little bit of autonomy to explore the airfield a little bit and find out that, hey, this one dude's dead.
Yeah.
And go find the first aid box, which has chicken feet and onions in it for some reason.
I don't quite understand. Okay, so both onions and chicken feet have, like, old grandma wives' tale reasons for being there. And both do have to do with, like, health, right? Like, both the onion and the chicken feet can be used as, like, old wives' tale, make you feel betters. But in the medicine box, that's not where those go.
No.
That's not where those go.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a way to, like, try and build suspense and, like, deter our expectations of, oh, this isn't supposed, or he's supposed to find the needles in there.
Yeah, that's true. Also, like, I'm not an expert on 1990s medicine boxes, but I don't know how many of them just contained loose needles.
I don't know either.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I know you can acquire loose needles, especially if you need insulin, but, like, I don't feel like those were just part of the standard health box. But
no.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe in the 90s, everyone had needles, and that's why the epidemic of needles and candy was supposedly a thing.
No.
I know it was fake.
Yeah.
I've researched the whole thing, but, like, maybe that's why people thought it was real, because they're, like, constantly, like, sweeping needles off their front yard. I don't know. I don't remember there being needles in the 90s, but, like, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, I think it's just a way to build suspense and deter or divert expectations.
Probably.
But also we get a little bit where the serial killer finds a little girl to make it creepy and dark for some reason.
It does make it creepy and dark, but on the plus side, this does give a reason why he then goes on to sing creepy songs on the plane. Because he's got them in his head from this creepy child. And honestly, I kind of appreciate that, like, yes, exactly, Charlie. There's a connection that, like, adds into the crazy. Because at every moment you see Steve Buscemi's character interacting with this kid, you're like, this is it. This is when the kid dies.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a weird moment. I think it's. I'll get into it later. I think it does something, but I don't know. I just don't care.
It's not the greatest moment in this film, but it does get Steve Buscemi's character distracted long enough for the rest of the plot to happen.
Yeah, which is barely in the movie after this.
I mean, I'm not mad.
But we're also on a time crunch now because we see the feds in the distance.
Oh god, they're coming to get us. Because, I let them here. Yeah.
Well, the one thing that's great about this scene, too, is we also get the cartel guy showing up, and this is where we're realizing, it wasn't going to go good for Cyrus, regardless of what his plans were. But this is a rehashing of the opening scene where Poe is now up against 3 guys. Mm-hmm. But now he has backup. Someone who can back up his story. True. Someone on his side.
Yes.
And he wins his trust over. Larkin wins Poe's trust. Mm-hmm. Because he's like, I met with your wife and daughter.
In person.
In person, exactly.
In person.
And again, good one-liners with this where he's like, I only trust 3 men, and you're not one of them.
Yeah. Some pretty good one-liners.
Yeah, honestly. You're not the other one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we forgot to bring up, you've become a useful man. You've proven to be a useful mammal.
Yeah.
Good one-liners.
Good one-liners.
But it is a good way to show that Poe is, or give Poe the information that he's not alone, that he knows that someone with the feds trusts him. And also, this is where we get some major explosions because they're trying to blow up everything around them. Yeah. His roll to safety after the explosion
makes no sense.
It's great, though.
It's wonderful.
It's 90s action at its peak. Jeez.
I fully agree, but from a physics standpoint, it makes no goddamn sense.
You're rolling with a shockwave, potentially doing less damage to yourself.
The Mythbusters would have me believe otherwise, but okie dokie.
Cool guys don't look at explosions. They roll forward away from them.
That's right. Cool guys just let the explosion crush their spine.
Yes. But it's time for the escape. I mean, there's nice bits of humor here and there, too, throughout this.
Yeah, that's true.
Shootout is fun and dynamic. I mean, taking Malloy's car is like trying to use the logic behind trying to use it to slow down.
To, like, as an anchor.
Yeah. Is just so stupid, too.
Yes.
Not like the plane's gonna, like, collapse it, but it's still just a really dumb plot point to have because
yes.
like,
it barely does anything.
Exactly, and then it just trailing behind is just the comedy to fuck over Malloy some more.
100%.
I mean, like I said, we've said this movie is over the top in all the right ways.
Yes.
And we do get that the little girl's safe.
Yep.
Which, this is why I don't think he's a serial killer, is because if he was truly a serial killer, even if he was in a cool-down stage, I don't think he'd be in a cool-down stage. He's been in prison. Yeah, he's been in prison so long. If he was truly a serial killer, he would have taken this opportunity, and I don't think the kindness of this little girl changed him.
From my way too interested in serial killers for my own safety and health mind, I took it as, he's not into little girls.
But he talked about using one of their heads as a hat for
a
week.
Woman. A teenager. She's like 6.
They don't specify that age, but
they don't. But she's playing pretend tea party.
But here's it's not the little girl, but the thing I think it's heavily implied because Poe's a little worried because he talks about he wore a little girl's head.
I don't think it was a little girl's head.
Again, I think it's his embellishments.
I think it is too. I don't think he actually is I don't think his character is actually interested in little girls. I think he moved girl, which in the 90s could have meant anything from 40 and between 16 and 40. I think he's moving that bar to mess with him.
But here's the thing is, the way he's talked about the one kind of murder that we even know about.
True.
I think from what he said, he's supposed to be like a product killer where he's not interested in the little girl because it's a little girl. It's the opportunity of having a body part to play with.
That could be, because then that would play also into the little gag at the end of the film that some of the body parts are just left on the plane.
Yeah. I don't think he's a serial killer.
I think he's a serial killer, just maybe not 32 people's worth of serial killing. It only takes a smaller number than that.
Yeah, or maybe he's framed. It's the 90s.
It is the 90s. I doubt it, though.
Nope. After the takeoff, Poe's exposed. Threatening the bunny is funny and so dramatic.
It is, but it works.
Yeah, it's... Yeah, but I mean, it's just to build the tension, but they have to change it up a little bit too because that tension doesn't work well anymore. Because now they're back on the plane together. Well, how's he going to take care of the cop? Yeah, the dude with insulin. Yeah, he's kind of resolved that a little bit. But
we're not quite there yet.
Still buddy. But this is where they didn't get the fuel they needed, and so now they have to emergency land, and there's a bigger threat that even though Poe's still a convict, even if he is buddies with the cop and the insulin dude,
true,
there's a bigger issue now.
Yep.
And that is resolved by crashing into Vegas because fuck Vegas.
Yeah, honestly, that was kind of the only reason they wrote Vegas in was A, it made more logic sense location-wise, and B, that's where the premiere was going to be hosted, and they went, what if we just wrote it in?
Yeah.
The sign usage from what I could find was just kind of happy accident of location-wise it made the most sense, and I don't know, we could get a tiny model of it to mess with, so...
Well, and on top of that, it also happened to work out quite well because the Sands Hotel that they crash into was already supposed to be demolished later that year.
Yep.
And so what they did is they just redressed it and got permission to crash a fuselage into it.
Yeah, and honestly, it was a good time. I enjoyed this part of the movie.
Yeah. No, I mean, this as much as I love the rest of the one-liners,
I agree.
This feels like your most standard action portion because
100%, because almost nobody really says anything.
Yeah, well, and almost everyone else is pretty much dead at this point. He saved the 2 people he wanted to save.
Yeah.
He gets a deep kiss from her as well.
It's so cute, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, but this is where we get the buddy cop of he has to team up with the feds to take out Cyrus for some reason.
I don't understand why. The cops are already on the job, and he went, no, I'm finishing this nonsense.
Well,
hops on the motorcycle, and they just take off down the LA tunnel.
No, Cyrus takes a fire truck, that's right.
Yeah, there's like a group of 3 or 4 of them on this fire truck, and they're on motorcycles, and then like some other cops join. So It's not even like, oh, he was the only one who saw them and didn't have time to tell anybody. No, like other people saw them escaping as well. This asshole just was like, no, this is personal. He threatened my bunny.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like, you are technically out at this point. Like, there's
I say, at this point, you are now committing crimes.
Yeah.
You need to stop.
You are a civilian.
You're now free. This is no longer self-defense.
No, he's not a civilian. He's still a convict. He hasn't technically been released from prison yet.
Technically, but I feel like at this point, you gotta tap out and be like, okay, technically, I can claim self-defense on the rest of it, and none of you know what happened on that plane. So, you don't know what I did.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I don't know.
No, instead, they go on a motorcycle chase down the tunnel, which was filmed actually in the tunnel. Wasn't a set, which is cool, but at the same time, real stupid.
Well, here's the thing that I really appreciate about this movie, too, is they tried using as much practical as they could.
I agree. I think it makes it, last better. This movie still looks good.
Any movie practical always works better.
Like we said, so far, the only thing in this movie that honestly does look bad was the door blowing off. And that was ages ago.
Yeah, that was 1997. Real quick CGI.
Yeah, everything else has been great. Even this stupid tunnel scene, which is mostly a lot of very fast cut editing to make it look like they're in a chase as opposed to an empty tunnel.
Yeah. Well, and Cyrus's death is pretty solid too.
True.
So it's a nice conclusion to the movie. I mean, I'm surprised the bunny's still intact, but...
Me too, but at the same time, that's the logic of an action movie.
Yeah.
If the hero's a perfect person, gets rewarded by his friend, who's still a convict and going back to jail?
I think he's almost out of his sentence. He's got a couple of years left. Well, he's
about to die in jail, because, that's not going to be a really great healing experience for a man who's been shot in the chest and almost died of insulin missing out on. So, I don't know how much longer his friend has.
He might get special treatment. He's got friends now.
I've heard of the special treatment the jail can give. It does not sound very good.
He might get pardoned.
I hope so. I hope they're like, he was part of the kidnapping. Go to normal hospital.
Well, also, we get the line, the really cheesy line of, there are 3 men I trust. Or, there's 3 men he trusts now, and one of them is...
that cop guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, hooray!
Yeah, well, it's...
And then, of course, there's the very cheesy reuniting of wife and daughter.
Yeah, it's just so...
It's so cheesy. I do appreciate that the daughter does act a bit like an actual child to an extent of you don't look like the picture mommy had. He's like, I meant to get a haircut, my bad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think that's what the child meant. I think it was you crashing your airplane.
Well, and also, why did you grow out your hair in the first place then?
Yeah, you can get a haircut in prison, can't you?
Because he's never left his cell except for to shower or eat.
I think that's 100% what it was supposed to be. Because, that's definitely a Nic Cage thing. He
kept to himself.
Nic Cage would have been like, no, this man never left his cell. He washed his hair in the sink. Took sink baths for all those years.
Amazing. And, it's a quick ending. Serial killer's free, and he's living the high life.
Yeah, he's feeling lucky in Vegas. And not running away like a good normal man should. Because again, this isn't that long ago. It's the 90s. There was definitely cameras in Vegas. Granted, they were grainy, but we had them.
Yep.
And you're like, nah, I'm going to stick around Vegas, play some chips.
And the credits roll.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hooray.
Well, I think he's plays craps.
Yeah.
But Con Air...
what a movie.
As much as so much of this doesn't make sense.
None of it makes sense.
It is one of those most iconic action movies that has aged so well.
It's great, and I think it's because none of it makes sense.
Well, it's cheesy and over the top in all the right ways. And, if you came to me telling me that this was the plot of the movie, I'd be like, this sounds awful.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I didn't tell anyone anything if they haven't seen this before.
Yeah. But I think part of what makes it stand out so well is, one, it is the classic bullshit.
It is. It's just so much all the time.
But also, it's got the memorable one-liners that we talked about, as well as just the memeability of this movie
it's honestly aged beautifully because of that.
Yeah, it's kept it in the consciousness of arguably the many easily forgettable Nicolas Cage action movies that have been out there. This one has stuck the test of time, and I think part of it, too, is because it was in that trilogy of action movies that he had done back to back to back, that
the big ones,
started to establish him in that. I mean, don't get me wrong, not as actiony, but Snake Eyes is very good. 8mm is good. Sure. I need to rewatch Gone in 60 Seconds because I don't remember much of it. But also, like, Bringing Out the Dead, solid little bits of action here and there. I mean, he's Wind Talkers. He's got some relatively good ones after this, but nothing, I don't think, that ever compared to The Rock, Con Air, or Face Off. Or I'd maybe say Willy's Wonderland in recent times and Mandy, but those are
way different.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think a lot of it is the cheese factor. Like, in different ways, all three of them had the over-the-top action-y soul, whereas I think later on when he was trying to be more of an actor than just the action guy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're good movies, but you do lose the just dumbness of it when you try and be better.
And I think that's with, like, the level of seriousness that I talk about with these action movies that try and take themselves, like, super seriously, or ones that are kind of funny. Like, there's one that he's in called The Humanity Bureau.
Yeah.
Really dumb movie, but it's way too serious all the time. Or, like...
Yes. And, like, this movie does a fantastic job of not just one character being, like, the fun character, or the one-liner character. Everyone in this movie is over-the-top ridiculousness together, and that's what makes this movie fun and enjoyable.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, if you just had if just Nic Cage's character had one-liners and just Steve Buscemi's character was a little weird, the movie wouldn't be nearly as good.
No, I agree. I think it's the mashup of everything that's cheesy in it, making it so great.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. I've got a list of, like, really bad, like, 80s and 90s action movies to get to at some point, but...
And the music, again, just really, like, sets it over the top, to the point where even, I think, one of the songs is in, like, plays so the characters in the movie can hear it, and even they are like, really? This is the song we're going with?
Yeah.
Little ironic, but okay.
Yeah.
And, like, honestly, it's that level of self-awareness that makes a movie fun. And granted, fun doesn't always mean a blockbuster or a big success, but in this case, it sure did. This movie made a shit ton of money on a moderate budget for the 90s.
And for a directorial debut, too.
Yes, definitely. And I'm impressed, honestly, we didn't get a Con Air 2.
I'm glad we did it.
Me too, it would have made no sense, but I'm impressed, because again, this was during the time period where, like, if something did even okay at the box office, it was scheduled for a second one immediately. And
unfortunately, with how movies are doing, I could easily see this getting a attempted reboot in the future.
I can too. However, most of the actors who were in this are still kicking in some fashion, and I don't think this would work well with a bunch of older men. Though, I don't know, maybe. That'd be kind of funny.
Nope.
So, like, they'd have to hand off all of these characters to new people, and there's a problem. Danny Trejo still plays all of Danny Trejo characters. We haven't replaced him yet. Yeah, the older group they'd basically be doing the Expendables, which I think Wes directed Expendables 2, if I remember right. That feels correct. Movies I also need to see. You'd like that one, actually. I've heard the first one's not great, but I like the second one. I completely agree with that sentiment. Not only would we be, like, removing a ton of big names, which can be kind of tricky, depending on what, contracts and leases look like for these characters, you'd also have to be replacing Nic Cage, because he's talked regularly about how he doesn't plan on doing, like, remakes like this ever again, so, like... Even then, who would they bring back? How would you replace him? Yeah, with whom? You got Poe, you got Larkin. Yeah. That's it. You got Buscemi's character who could come back. Yeah, how would you possibly, like, rework these characters? I don't know. I don't see it happening. So that's good. This is our only one. The other thing that was kind of impressive was, even though this has a cult following, there's a huge group of people who love this movie, despite there being nothing to learn about it other than airplane knowledge. This movie surprisingly had okay critic responses when it came out. Most critics gave it a medium to low score, but praised its acting and its music and its directing. So, like, they knew it was bad, but they loved it. Well, and I think that goes to show that these artsy films that everyone praises aren't always the way to go. Sometimes you need that level of cheese, and it has to work in the right ways to put everything together. Because, like, for me, I have a love for, like, Psycho Gore, man.
that has that level of like Power Ranger just goofiness to it.
Over the top.
But also at the same time, it's grotesque and violent. And it's just that it came out at that right time where I was in a little bit of a rut with horror films and horror comedy.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie is also one that, like, I'd seen this ages and ages ago. I don't plan on rewatching things very often, but this one, now that I have seen it, I'll be watching this movie every week. This movie's fantastic. What have I been doing with myself?
Yeah, it's a solid one. So, Chris, on the good, bad, weird scale, what do you give Con Air?
With the most love in my heart, this is a bad. In the best way physically possible. As much as I want to say it's a bad good, I honestly don't think it is. I think that lessens its imperfections, which are its best features. I think this is the best bad.
I can see that. So, almost so bad it's good.
This, for me, this is in that range of so bad it's good. Because yes, there is good qualities to it, but those were brought on by people who knew this movie was going to be bad. And tried their damnedest to have fun with it.
Yeah, I think I'm on a different side. I think it's good weird because, one, I think the writing of it is so intentionally done well.
I agree.
That every little bit is brought back at some point or another. There's not really... I mean, there's wasted lines, but they're not that often that we have some dumb shit. It's got one-liners.
Yeah, but those are needed for an action film.
Yeah, and it's also almost parodying 90s and 80s action movies without being scary movie about it, of making all these movie references or just ripping off and warping the other types.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, but it's also weird because all this shit on paper,
it doesn't make sense.
No, it sounds like it'd be a horrible, horrible movie.
And that's why you cannot recap this movie to anyone ever, especially if they've never seen it.
No. So on that note, do you recommend?
With my whole chest, yes. I'm so glad that I forced my husband to watch this. He tried to get out of it by saying he thinks he might have seen parts of this. And I went, too bad, sucker, we're watching it. I forgot how much I love this movie. I, remembered seeing it. I remember the one-liners about the bunny and stuff. I forgot how much I truly enjoy this movie, and I will now be recommending it and adding it to my regular, probably summer list, even though it is Nic Cage November.
Yeah, I do highly recommend this one. I mean, it's iconic for just Nic Cage, but also 90s action movies.
Yeah.
I'm upset I didn't see it earlier, but granted, everyone knows my history with Cage. I wasn't the biggest fan up until about 5-6 years ago.
Understandable. And while this one is not grotesque or overly, showy with anything, I do think the humor and the language is mature enough that maybe, be careful what high schooler you recommend to.
Oh, I don't know. My views, we know I'm skewed on any of that stuff. So.
That is why I am the one giving the warning.
And then, as our always Nic Cage scale, on a scale of just regular acting to the cagiest of acting, what do you rate this?
This is a nice middle Cage for me. There's plenty of weird, there's plenty of crazy. However, he does feel like he's truly trying to embody the serious stoicness that we know Cage is capable of.
Yeah, I think mine is also about in the middle. It doesn't go too far into the Vampire's Kiss or Face Off level.
He's not trying anything new.
No, it's just slightly over the top. It's probably in the same range as Raising Arizona, where it's a goofy, quirky character in a goofy movie.
Agreed, and I also hope that throughout the years, Cage has either learned a better Southern accent, or maybe learned not to play a Southern character.
I just hope he still keeps doing bad Southern accents.
So bad.
Yeah. But now it's the time of the show. Season 6 bingo. New season, a new game. Chris and I are playing bingo, and you can too. Rules for players are simple. 1 stamp per card per episode. Cards can be found on our socials at TGTBTW_podcast on Instagram and Threads, and TGTBTW podcast on Twitter. You feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. You can use any of the 3 bingo card variations, but each stamp must be associated with a season 6 episode. Second place gets to choose a deep dive and 1 micro review because first place has already been won. Third place gets to choose 2 micro reviews. Fourth and fifth place get to choose a single micro review. So feel free to share at us on social media or email us to participate. Rules for us are slightly different. Chris and myself get 2 stamps per deep dive. First to get bingo in any good, bad, or weird card gets to choose a movie they feel fits that category for season 7. What do you got, Chris?
I will be giving 2 rating reviews. 1 on my bad card, for Chris gives a movie a bad rating.
Alright.
And then on my weird card, for Nico gives a movie a weird rating.
Very nice. I think I'm gonna go with good and weird.
Look at you.
And I think we have our first bingo.
A bingo for you!
I'm gonna say Nicolas Cage is actually a good actor.
I, unfortunately, will agree with you.
Because, even though it is a cheesy role,
and his accent's garbage,
he portrays it so perfectly for what he has.
And I do think, with my whole chest, that he did study Southern accents, and he's just bad at it.
I agree. So we have our first bingo. I get to choose a movie that I think fits good for season 6.
Good job. Well done.
I gotta figure out if you can't use good anymore.
That's fair.
I'm gonna go with weird for Columbo reference because it was a weird tangent that you went into.
I did bring up Columbo in a roundabout way.
I brought up Columbo. But you brought up CSI Miami.
Yes, Horatio and Columbo are probably soul related, to be honest.
Yeah, so we're going with Columbo for the weird edition. We are getting there. 1 bingo, finally.
Round of applause. Congratulations.
And we're halfway through the season.
You know what? This is both slower and faster than I thought.
Well, we might come up with some additional rules so you can keep using your good card.
That's the one I've been working on the most, but that's okay if it's not fair. I can figure out a different route. I'm sure of it.
Maybe do a micro review.
Yeah, maybe. I can get there.
But I'm excited for Nic Cage November, especially knowing that we're doing some more action-based movies, and especially our next micro review is a return and actually a sequel that we did not plan on talking about, or we didn't plan on, and speaking of Con Air sequels,
True.
Didn't try relating into at all, so
I'm looking forward to it. It's one of my enjoyments.
I am too. I've actually got a friend who's got his entire month planned out for the month, or for Nic Cage November himself. And
welcome to the holiday season, my friend.
Thank you, Austin. I'm sorry I pissed you off for not watching as much Nic Cage as you as Nic Cage November, so. But, anywho, this has been the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Peace! Thank you for stopping by this here town of the good, the bad, and the weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or TGTBTW for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always, check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace!